And we are live. Welcome everybody to the last SMARP live session of 2020. It's been quite a year. We've had a bunch of great sessions and a bunch of great people joining them, a great audience. So thank you everybody for joining us this deep into the holiday season for our 5 lessons for managing billion-dollar employee advocacy programs live session. First of all, one of the things we loving the seasonal hat. Thank you, Katrina. Yes, I'm trying to bring out the holiday cheer. I was also walking around trying to find something Christmassy to wear, but I only had my red hoodie, so hopefully that will suffice. Steve was talking about wearing reindeer ears, but I can't see them, Steve. So
no, I bottled it.
One of the things we like to do when we start off with these sessions is just to get a sense of where people are calling in from. So you see on the right-hand side of your screen, you have a little questions tab. Go ahead and type in there where you're calling in from. We really like to see where our audience is calling in during each of these sessions. Really quickly onto today's agenda and our guest of honor here. So our guest of honor today will be Steve, our Customer Success Director here at SMARP. Steve, thank you so much for taking the time to join us for this session. How about you give our audience a bit of an intro to who you are and what you're all about?
Yeah, of course. Thank you very much for having me, Alex, and the marketing team overall. So yeah, hi everyone. My name's Steve Plowman. I've been a customer success director at SMART for the past couple of years. So really, what it is my role to work with our existing customer base and make sure that everything we do on the platform brings them as much value as possible. So yeah, as I said, I've been doing this past couple of years with companies like Amazon, Salesforce, London Stock Exchange, just to name a few. And previously, before I moved to SMART and became a customer success director, I was a management consultant. So it was quite a shift, but it was a good shift for me and hopefully for SMART as well.
Hopefully, well, yeah. You know, at least from my point of view, it has been a good shift. Steve, thank you so much for joining us. Of course, if you're tuning into one of our sessions for the first time, SMARP is a employee communications and advocacy platform. So while we do service the kind of primarily or like a lot of kind of internal communications and employee communications use cases, one of the big benefits that our customers see from using SMARP is the employee advocacy side of things, which is what we're here to talk about today. And looking at the chat, we do have a good spread again. I'm seeing Colombia, Germany, Minneapolis, London, Brussels, Espoo. Yes, that's where I'm from. England, San Francisco. It's early over there. So really great to see such a broad and global audience once again. Thank you guys for joining us. Really quick, a few really simple housekeeping topics. So we'll be covering 5 lessons learned from managing employee advocacy programs at some of our largest clients. So Steve manages a bunch of our kind of largest and high profile clients. And while Steve, you may not be able to say specifics on who did what and what happened at which organization, we're definitely interested in hearing some of your insight and what you've learned throughout the years. We will be doing, David Perry in the chat. Dave, awesome to see you.
Hi, Dave.
Awesome to see you here too. Love getting the support for Steve immediately in the chat. We will be doing Q&A live throughout the session. So at any point, if you have a question, on anything that we're talking about, feel free to drop it in the question tab on the right-hand side. But I think without further ado, Steve, we can go ahead and launch into our first lesson. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's what we're here to do, isn't it?
Let's go ahead and do it. So lesson number 1 pertains to kind of the rollout and launch of your employee advocacy program. So it goes that get the first 100 days of your program right. And that's, you know, some would argue that the first 100 days are some kind of is the most crucial time to get a program up and running and kind of off the ground. Steve, where did this lesson come from? Maybe you can shed some insight here.
Yeah, well, hopefully I can shed some insight. No, I 100% think that starting your advocacy program in the right way, on the right foot, it makes a huge impact down the line when you look at things like the user adoption and then the overall results of what it is you're trying to do. If you can get those first 100 days right and start on the right foot, then it just builds momentum into what it is that you're trying to achieve through employee advocacy. So for me, I always think that there's no successful advocacy program that's just dropped into a big company and day one they get going and everything goes great. There's a lot of work and planning, preparation that goes into running and managing any successful employee advocacy program. So I kind of for this had a bit of a checklist of things that you should be thinking about doing if this is something that you're looking to do, particularly in the early stage of next year. So on my checklist, I think point number one, a great tip and something that I've noticed some of our customers have done and brought to me, I've learned from them, is if you start with a benefits document. And when I say that, I mean, what are the benefits for the business and what are the benefits for the people using the platform, your employees, because you need your employees to use an advocacy platform for you to derive any of the benefits that you may have bought it for. Now, whilst you probably, and in pretty much all of the cases that I've come across, you know the benefits and you know the reason why you've launched an advocacy program with Smart or whatever. Not everyone is going to know that. And I think it's really important for you to be able to, at the start of this kind of journey, if you like, get your thoughts down on a piece of paper so that you know that you're going to be able to clearly communicate the benefits both to the wider business and to the employees that you want to be using it as well. So what is it that this program is going to bring to the business? Do you need to engage other stakeholders within the business to help you run and manage this? And if so, what's directly in it for them? How are you going to impact their bottom line? And then ultimately for the users, you know, what's in it for them? Obviously, I think most people in the chat will know that one of the main benefits of employee advocacy for an individual employee is building their own personal brand online. But that's great, but what's that going to do for that individual? Really spell it out and make sure that you're clear in your head what those benefits are for the business, for the employee, and that you can communicate that effectively. So I'd say that's kind of the number one thing that you should do when you first start this journey, this process. Now, the next point on the checklist for me would be project planning. Pick a launch date and work back from there. Probably seems like quite an obvious comment, and I'm sure that a few people in the audience will be thinking, "Oh, great insight, Steve." But you'd be amazed at how many times, you know, projects can falter or be delayed because there isn't a clear launch date in mind, and there's been no way to work and track back from that. Now, when it comes to picking a target launch date, there's no definite this is the right way to do it. But think about things like, is there a new product or strategic initiative that is launching at a set time of the year, and right, you need your advocacy platform up and running, people on the platform sharing, engaged by that point so that you can boost that out? Is this part of something else altogether? Are you looking to promote an event, for example? In which case, work backwards from that event, give yourself time to implement it. And then when it comes to that point where you're starting to promote it, you've got a real boost for your advocates in that sense there. Now, once you've got that date, and obviously you can look at it from kind of a defining event, as I've just given a couple of examples. What that's going to do for you is it's going to enable you to plan effectively. It's going to enable you to look at the different work streams that you have, the different people involved. Who do you need to access to get this up and running? Are there people from IT, for example, that you don't know on a day-to-day basis, but you're going to need their help at some stage in this implementation? And you can organize your work streams effectively and also with transparency as well. So if something does get held up, which in any project you get blockers, what can you do to mitigate that, and how can you move other parts around so that you can still hit that day?
Right. And I think something you said there was super crucial. Like you mentioned the involvement of IT, because it's like so often IT gets brought into the game like really late in the game. It's kind of like I've heard directly from some of the CIOs and CTOs I've spoken to. It's like you get a new platform, it kind of gets dumped on you, and it's just like IT is like, okay, what do we do with this? So would you say it's like makes sense to, especially thinking about the IT stakeholder, would it make sense to involve them earlier, like get them in the game really early on?
Absolutely. Like clarity, and that's what I was talking about just there with transparency. Who do you need involved? What do they need to know, and when do they need to know it by? And it kind of leads on, I suppose, to the next point on the checklist, which is about communication. So at this stage, when you're early on an advocacy program, you're going through a launch process, I really don't think that you can communicate too much. There's different people that you're going to need to communicate to. So who's going to be actually involved in helping you get this up and running? Who do you need help from to run and manage the platform on a global scale? Are there people from within your business unit maybe, but based on the other side of the world that you're going to need to bring into the program for it to be a success? But also your users as well. How can you get them excited for this opportunity that's going to be coming their way? What do they need to do to prepare? So I think that publishing this and promoting it as widely across your organization as you can to generate interest is one, but also making sure that you're really clear and transparent with your stakeholders that you're going to need along the way in those early stages as well is super important. I've got 5 lessons. I've got 5 things on my checklist, so we've only got 2 more. This one is kind of like after you've launched it, so you've had your go live date. Everything's kind of gone off with a bang. You've gone out to all these people in one go. What do you need to do at that stage? And I think it is so important. And well, to give David a shout out, who I know is on the call. I can't see you, but I know that know you're there. One thing that Dave in his case has done really well is during those first stages right after the launch of the program, he was so close to it and he knew exactly what was happening, where things were going really well and he could kind of leave things be, but also what areas of the platform he needed to constantly be on top of and work at, to make sure that there are kind of the basics are all being catered for. Is there a constant flow of content that people are able to share? Are you giving people positive affirmation that they're behaving in the right way, or are you nipping things in the bud early on the platform? So those, this is all obviously part of the first 100 days, but those initial points after you go out to your employees and you go live with the tool are so important, again, to build momentum and keep things going in the right way. And the final item on my checklist is take stock and review your learning. So when you get to the end of your 100-day process, it could be a 90-day process, it could be 110 days, however your program's gonna run. Make sure that you take time out to look back at the entire process from the first day that you with Smart, the first day that you came on board with Smart to where you are today. Look at all of those parts of your journey and to learn from them. Are there things that have gone really well? Are there things that could have gone better? And learn from them and build a better platform from them.
Right. There's for anybody in the audience, we'll send you your Steve's 5-point checklist after the show, but that's super insightful stuff. And something you might not necessarily some of those things were some things that I don't even instinctively think about, and only comes with your kind of benefit of working with these clients. There's a few questions in the chat that I wanted to bring up. There's one actually from Gabrielle that I think is going to be really relevant for your next lesson. So we'll bring that up there. But there's a question from Jonas in the chat relating to your first item on the checkpoint about talking about the benefits of the platform. Would you, when you're communicating about the benefits, like, of course, we talked about how it's a great way to build thought leadership, etc., like what's in it for the user. Would you also communicate to the end user, like what's in it for the business? Is it like, will that help them kind of get some points with them? Yeah,
absolutely. In my experience, and I've seen people do it both ways. I've seen people just focus on, this is what it's going to do to you. And I think that can work well in some businesses as well. So I'm not saying that that's a bad idea at all, but I mean, I as an employee of Smart, I'm interested in doing things for the benefit of my company, and that's not completely not self-serving. I want to do as well as I can for the company, and I think that that's a pretty common attitude to have. So I think that, whilst you obviously do want to communicate the benefits to that individual, what's it going to do for them? How's it going to help them progress? How's it going to help them improve? When you understand actually what impact this has on the business as well, that can heighten the intensity that someone will go after it, because they'll understand that actually, no, this is a big strategic initiative that we're a part of here, and I want to be a star in it. So yeah, I 100% think that you should communicate that as well.
Right. And it's all about, it goes back to kind of building that alignment around company objectives and goals, and super crucial there. All right, I think in the interest of time, let's go ahead and move on to lesson number 2. Again, Gabrielle has a great question, but I think that's something we can address in the next one here, next lesson. So the next lesson number 2 reads, how to engage thousands of employees as opposed to hundreds. So of course, especially when we're speaking about enterprise businesses, they have thousands, if not tens, if not hundreds of thousands of employees. How do you build a program that enables across this kind of a massive workforce to engage employees rather than just kind of improving the performance of a select few that probably were going to be engaged from the start? So interested to hear your lessons learned here.
Yeah, so I think that whenever you're looking to launch to kind of a large and diverse amount of employees, the complexity of what you're trying to do increases. It's obviously much more difficult to do anything at a larger scale than it is to do a smaller scale. And some of the reasons that the complexity increases is if you're a large enterprise business with offices all over the world in different regions, you have to cater for different languages, for one. Mm-hmm. You'll probably have to cater for different ways that your organization is structured. So, for example, each of your individual regions run under its own profit and loss. So basically its own entity under a larger umbrella firm. Are your business units global? How are your people actually structured within those? So I think that when you're looking at that and all the competing interests that come along with having a large program at a big company, you've got to make sure that what you're doing is representative of what that end user wants to see. And the way that you do that is through a solid structure on the platform. So if I speak from my experience at Smart, is one of the great strengths of our platform and why I've been able to particularly with clients that I manage, obviously, that I'm speaking about, why I've been able to drive so much success is that we're able to map to these really complex organizations. And the reason that that's so important is that you've got to think about the problem that you're trying to solve, right? What you're trying to do is you're trying to get the right content in the hands of the right person so that they can then share that out to people within their social networks who are going to find that information relevant. And that's how you're going to maximize the impact of your program. But the question then becomes, how do I get the right content in the right hands of the right person with the right network on a consistent enough basis to be successful? And if you're using a platform that you're not able to replicate the structure of a business, or you're not able to segment content in a way that it's not going to just completely overload all of your end users, all of your employees, then you're kind of going to be doomed to fail from the start, to be honest, because if you have a limited structure in terms of the technology that a platform can support, then you're never going to be able to go that high. And luckily, for us, that's a great strength of our platform.
Right. How about, like, if you think about when we're talking about this kind of massive workforce and tens if not hundreds of thousands of people on the platform, I'm assuming that it becomes very unmanageable for like a single team or a single administrator or a single person to manage such a scale. How do you kind of structure management? Like who actually ends up managing the platform in cases like this?
Yeah, so that's a really good point, and it's really important that you're able to distribute workload. There's no future in somebody who's managing a platform for thousands of people across the entire world, and they're doing it from as one person in one location. It can't happen. It's not sustainable for someone to be doing that amount of work, or for maybe some people it is, but nobody that I've ever met. And that's where again the platform that you choose needs to help you. Does it have the admin permission levels that you need to be able to control some of the information and the workload yourself, but also then distribute that out to different regions? How can you sustainably manage a constant flow of content, a constant flow of user management and user engagement across all of these different regions and different business units? It's super important to be able to actually provide people with their role on the platform, so that you can distribute that workload. Otherwise it becomes unsustainable. And again, that's something that is in place with a lot of my customers.
Right. And I think, and what we're discussing here is kind of touches upon, and I'm glad we kind of took this discussion in this direction, because now I can ask this question from Gabrielle in the chat, which is, what do you think about advocacy programs without pre-written, pre-approved content, but counting on proactive ambassadors to share their own content within company values and topics? So is this a way to help scale to this kind of a massive workforce when you allow employees to kind of produce and supply the company with their own content?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's kind of your nirvana state, isn't it? Although
right.
it does depend entirely on what you're trying to do. If you just want people to be kind of going on the internet, finding and sharing content into a platform and then sharing that on their own social network, so you can create thought leaders, then potentially that is a good part of your strategy, right? And user-generated content is always going to be a real measure of engagement on a platform. How much value does your individual user take from it? I think that if you are not doing that, and if what you're really trying to do is, for example, drive traffic back to your website, it's not going to be very useful for you to have lots of people proposing and suggesting loads of content from loads of different sources that are directing people away from your website. So
right.
it comes down to what it is that you want to use employee advocacy for. Yes, to the point, it's absolutely fantastic to get to a stage where you have a lot of employees who are knowledge sharing and proposing content into a single place and kind of starting debate around that. But really, if that's what you're doing, then that's fantastic. But it's always got to link back to what it is you want to achieve by running an advocacy platform.
Is there, like, maybe kind of building on this, is there a way to maybe promote user-generated content? Have you seen anything with your clients where you were able to kind of boost the amount of user-generated content? Because on one hand, like, and of course you talked a lot about the goals and what the end goal for the business is, but especially on the kind of internal comms side, we typically see that user-generated content performs really well, very often even better than the kind of corporate, like, company originated content. So how about on the EA side, is there a way to kind of spur user-generated content, and does that typically perform better, worse, the same?
No, I think it performs really well. And I think if you take a step back, one of the reasons why employee advocacy is so powerful in the first place is because it leverages the voice of a person, someone that you trust. As if you see something on LinkedIn, on Twitter, and it's, I don't know, Jeff Bezos or whoever, it is so much less relatable than if you would see someone that is a reflection of yourself, then sharing that out. So that's why it's so powerful, and that's why user-generated content is really powerful, because somebody has invested the time to go find that content, engage with it. They've obviously read it and thought it was going to be super relevant to the people in their network or their colleagues. And so that's why that content is so powerful. And again, it is brilliant. So ways that I've seen work in kind of encouraging that is a couple of ways that you can go about this. I think in every organization, you're always going to have people that take an interest and want to promote themselves as a thought leader, or are naturally a kind of a thought leader in space. Right. And those people will always suggest content, and they'll participate in that side of it. Other ways that you can incentivize other people to do this is simple things like running rewards programs for actually who kind of who found the piece of content that got the most engagements on social media. You can do that on a monthly, a quarterly basis, and incentivizing people who may not usually do that to do that. But I suppose finally the last point of it is, I think it's actually creating an environment and a culture within your advocacy platform where you're encouraging this knowledge sharing, and people right. respond to positivity, right? So if you are creating this environment where that behavior is encouraged and celebrated, even if it's not through material gain, then I think that's also a great way to spur people on to do it.
Right.
I hope that answered the question from the audience.
Well, Gabrielle said that it was very useful. So hopefully it did. And obviously we could talk about this topic for days probably. But I think in the interest of time, we can go ahead and keep the show rolling and go on to lesson number 3, which is an interesting one because it reads that scaling comes with surprising benefits. Now, often when we talk about scaling, we think about, or when we think about scaling, we think about what we were just talking about. So engaging a larger audience. So kind of leveling up from that 100 employee user base to say 100,000. That's what we typically tend to think about when we're talking about scaling. But I have a feeling that that's not all that you're talking about or thinking about here. So no. What are these surprising benefits from scaling?
Well, I think, first of all, if we go for the one that probably isn't surprising, it doesn't take a genius to work out that the return on investment for your specific use case, you might want to generate more social reach. You're going to generate a lot more social reach with 100,000 employees than you are with 100. That's not a surprise benefit of scale. But one of the things that I often think gets overlooked is what scale of employees and a larger employee footprint does is it enables you to expand business impact outside of your own use case. So what I mean here is you are able to impact different areas of the business with what the great work that you're already doing on your employee advocacy platform. I think a couple of examples here is you could be using the tool as a digital marketing manager to try and boost eyeballs on your content, boost traffic to your website. Now, when you're doing that at scale, you can then actually start to impact areas such as talent acquisition or employer branding. Right. You can look at more sales enablement because you've got a larger employee base on there. You actually, at that point, even can then start to use the platform for internal communications too, right. Because you've got a tool that is then able to target people with relevant information for their connections. It can do the same thing for an internal basis as well from your employees. So I think that when you look at scale, and obviously the most obvious thing is that as you go up in numbers, the impact is going to be greater. But one of the things that is definitely overlooked is how that scales across a business. So what other areas of your business, what other business units, what other countries are then going to be impacted by what you've built? And I think that when you look at those, I just gave a few examples of use cases. Actually, what return on investment means to them is going to be different to what your main KPIs are. What's the return on investment that you're looking at? So if you're looking at employer branding, for example, you're probably looking at things like market share and reach. If you're looking at enablements, obviously you're looking at probably down the funnel lead generation. Whereas for internal communication, you could be looking to reduce attrition and HR to add headcount. Right. So all of those return on investment is going to mean different things to to each of those business units. But when you're doing this at scale, you've got the opportunity to, first of all, save your business cost by solving the problem that other areas of your business are having with a tool that's already embedded and already successful. If you take an example for talent acquisition, your HR and talent acquisition function could have been tasked with growing headcount in your business by 20% in a year. Okay, how are they then going to solve that problem? Well, actually, you've already created an Advocacy platform which is helping you reach millions of people. Now, can you add a use case for social recruitment in that? Of course, when you're talking about reach at that scale, that becomes hugely attractive. And we know how powerful social recruitment is as a use case for actually kind of getting better applicants. So not only are you helping them scale their headcount by 20%, you're also giving them better applicants and more likelihood of that closing. Equally, if your sorry, I got my words mixed up. Your internal communications team need to communicate about some key changes that are happening to the business, and they know the limitations of the internet and email. Then you've already done a lot of the legwork for them to be able to target and segment out really targeted and key critical messages to employees that then need that. So actually, when you're looking at it from such a larger volume of numbers, it becomes really easy for you guys to essentially save your business's money by providing something that's already working that can be repurposed in a slight way to complement your existing use case, but also solve another problem.
Right.
So yeah, you're going to become a real star at that stage in your business if you're able to do that.
Right. And I think, some good examples that at least come to my mind there are when the coronavirus pandemic first got labeled a pandemic, and we had a bunch of, I remember looking at our data in the platform, and like 20% of all searches performed on Smart were related to coronavirus. So employees were actually on there searching for that information. So, and that's what a lot of our clients used it for, kind of that side of communications. And other, like, I like you're talking a lot about kind of mentioned talent acquisition and recruitment. I think one thing that people don't realize, one of the great benefits of employee advocacy lies specifically in that use case in social recruitment. Because if you think about it, especially if you're a company with kind of like hard to fill positions, think like a biochemicals company and looking for a biochemicals engineer or scientist. There's a finite number of those people available. But like, if you can't just post that job on LinkedIn or post that job on Greenhouse and expect people to find it. But most likely you have people in your company that fit that profile. Those people most likely went to school with other people that fit that profile. And they're most likely connected to those people through their, LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever network you happen to be using. And those people are a great way to kind of reach those types of, especially those hard to fill employees. So I think that's a nice anecdote that I remember we did a webinar on, or a discussion on talent acquisition a while back. And this was one of the key things that we discussed, and people often overlook, but a great surprising benefit to employee advocacy.
Yeah, and I think just to add to that as well, I think that that in my experience there can be a common misconception about kind of social recruitment, that you would just use an advocacy platform to push out like open positions, and essentially you end up with a newsfeed full of open positions, and it maybe isn't such a great look for a company if that's all that people are visibly sharing on social media, unless of course you're a recruitment agency. But I think that there's so much more to that, the social recruitment now. All of the people stories that you see in your feeds on LinkedIn, on Twitter, where people at these companies who are engaged in a war for talent, like these huge companies looking to hire the best talent in difficult to fill positions. Right. Being front of mind and seeing that you've got someone as somebody who's then looking for a job, you've got somebody who is actually going out and speaking in such a positive way about what they do in their day-to-day jobs, what a great company you are to work for, that's only going to benefit down the funnel when you are then looking to convert applicants that may even come in directly from social.
Right. I think before we move on to the next question, I want to bring out one of these questions, or actually a few questions that came to the chat, because I think they're kind of related to these first three lessons that we've been talking about. And it's kind of here, Walter and Dave are asking in the chat about identifying your best ambassadors, and that's important. Whether we talk about your first 100 days, or we talk about beginning that scaling journey, or realizing those benefits, I think identifying, of course, you don't want to only focus on people, but at the beginning, or a certain group, but at the beginning of your journey, it might make sense to engage these types of power users to kind of layer that program into the rest of the organization. So the question really is who. Do you have any kind of examples or any insight or intuition on who are the best ambassadors? Are there people that are already engaged? Are they senior people? What does a power, a great ambassador, look like? Is there any mold?
Yes and no. So commonly what I come across is people wanting to get start with the top people in an organization. And the reason for that is these people are usually well known in their industry. That you could describe them as thought leaders in many cases. And in a lot of huge companies, you have these kind of real social media personalities and influencers who are at the top end of businesses. And those people work fantastically. But in other businesses, you have senior leadership that don't understand the benefit of advocacy and social media in general. They're not people that sound awful, but they haven't grown up doing it. They're not. It's not part of their day-to-day routine, and they're incredibly busy. And it's difficult to give people access and make them find the time to understand that, unless they can grasp the obvious benefits that come with that. So I think that you've got to look in that respect at if you are going down the senior people to start with route, you've got to look at what's the likelihood of these people really grasping and driving this forward. But for me, I always think that when you're looking at identifying people, identify influential people in your business. So again, that could be senior leadership, people that people aspire to within the business, who understand and have a grasp of social media. So if you're then coming down a couple of levels to identify someone who is not super senior and well known in the industry, but already has a great footprint on social media, and is an influential person to others in your business and brings people along with them, that's always a good place to start. And there are loads of ways that you can look to find those people that you can, obviously it's easy as looking on LinkedIn, which sounds ridiculous, but if you're actually starting to look at people who are beginning to develop a reputation in your company, those people I find are also very good.
All right. Awesome. I love it. I think, again, we can keep moving in the interest of time. I see, Olis, thanks for putting in that first 100-day checklist there, so everybody can grab it off of there. I'm sure we'll follow up with some materials around that. Steve, that sounds like a good LinkedIn post for you, the first 100 days checklist. All right. But yeah, going ahead on to lesson number 4. And this one reads, integrate with your tech stack. And now that sounds very, very obvious when but you'd be surprised how many times a tool gets brought in and it's like, okay, we're just going to roll out this platform and just, invite people on, and then that's it. And without thinking about the kind of overall tech stack and how things play together, especially in an enterprise organization. So Steve, lessons learned with integrating to especially like an enterprise tech stack. What have you got for us?
So yeah, I think that when you look at onboarding a program at an enterprise organization, is always massively important. Where does this fit in with your existing stack? And I think that when you look at it from an employee advocacy perspective, there's really 3 parts to integrations, as in what are the benefits of those. So first of all, the most obvious one, and I imagine a lot of people in the audience here would be in this position is, how do I make my life as easy as possible as someone who is managing the platform? Right. So admin automation. The next would be, how can I make it as easy as possible for my employees, so your end users? And then third, what am I giving back to the business? So business intelligence from that point. So if we start with admin automation, there's obviously two real time-consuming parts of managing an employee advocacy platform, and that's making sure that there is content available for your users to share. Now, a lot of these companies, there's almost too much content, and there's so much being generated from the marketing function, from the social function, right, from recruitment functions, that it can all it can also, you know, get messy. But in other cases, actually, you know, this is something that is time consuming. You need to get content into the platform, and there are ways that you can automate that. Now, whether that's through integrations with different content management systems, even things like RSS feeds from the website, just to make your life so much easier from that point. So I think that there's the content. So where is content hosted in your ecosystem, and how can I bring that in with the minimum of fuss and not have to be typing it out and to get it into the platform? The other side of it, which is huge, is the user management side. So how can I integrate with our HR systems to make sure that number one, what we're able to do is actually manage these people, these thousands of people at a scalable level. So I'm not constantly having to go into the platform and see that actually there's 50 people under this area of the platform that have all left the business 6 months ago. So having that kind of live integration with HR systems and single sign-on, for example, is really, really important. Now, that's important from this is going to save me time perspective, but it also really links into what we were talking about earlier in terms of structure. Now, if you have structured your platform to match your complex organization, the main problem you're solving is getting the right content to the right person at the right time. And a lot of the businesses that I work in, people move around in businesses. So if that information is not live, then that's the problem that isn't being solved accurately, consistently, and at a scalable size. The other side of this is actually, you know, when I'm looking at this structure, what I'm getting out of that is a lot of data. When I go to, and we'll talk a little bit about this, I know, in a bit, but when you're looking at your analytics in the platform, you can slice and dice analytics in loads of different ways. You can look at what employee segment is engaging most with a certain type of content. You can look at specific kinds of content and who is sharing, who isn't sharing that content. But if you're then looking to look at it from a higher level and understand, okay, what's the performance of our teams in Thailand within this particular function, if you can't be confident that the data is accurate because it represents people that are A, working for your business still, B, includes all your new joiners for that, C, is reflective live of actually who's working in that part of the business, then all of that information isn't reliable. So that side of it it really is so important to get right and understand that what you're looking at in terms of who's on the platform is an accurate reflection of what's happening.
Yeah, I love what you kind of mentioned there, that in like businesses of this scale, typically people move a lot internally, and that's not something you necessarily think about when you're like running a platform like this. But when someone moves internally, their needs and the information and content that's relevant to them is going to change, and you can't be for such a massive organization, you can't be doing that manually. It's just impossible. And I think this comes, you know, back to one of the things we discussed about earlier is on a lot of these initiatives, when you're integrating with different tools, you're going to have to be engaging your IT department. So again, like bringing in that IT department as early as possible into the conversations, even before you decide to buy, you kind of bring them in and like help them scope out your program, your project. So they kind of have to be in there from day one. All right, but yeah. You were saying.
I was saying. In terms of the next part of it, you're obviously then looking at ease of use for users. So how can I make the lives of the people that I want to be serving content so that they can share it as easy as possible? And this is where you've got to look at where people are spending time in your organization in terms of tech stack. Where are people communicating one-on-one with each other? Are you using Slack, for example? Are you using Teams? Where's that kind of online collaboration happening in your organization? And we know that given the year that we've had, businesses have been investing in tools to make sure that remote and disparate workforces can effectively collaborate together. So look at where your people are most likely to be spending time, and then look at, okay, well, instead of always asking them to come back to Smart and find and share content there, which a lot of users will, because it's be a part of their daily routine, or they'll get it on their mobile app and be notified when content finds it. Actually, how can you even skip that step further and look at where people are likely to be, and then find them with that content in other areas of your ecosystem? So if I'm talking to you, Alex, on Slack, but then get a pop-up that actually there's a new piece of content that's available for me, and I can just click to share it from where I am, that is so much more effective than relying on people to come back to a single place to find and share content. We all know that in your personal life, nobody is loyal to kind of one communication channel. You're constantly flitting between different apps, different platforms to get what you want out of every one of those. So if you can actually find a way of finding those employees in the areas of your tech stack that they are, you can really ease the burden on them and make it as easy as possible. And that's one of the things that Smart does so well, is it gives you the opportunity to, I actually was speaking to a customer the other day who said that what they really wanted to do, and this was at one of the world's biggest law firms, what they really wanted to do is disrupt their employees, which I thought was a really, really interesting concept, because typically you would think that the last thing that you would want to do as a communicator is disrupt when you think about it like that. But what she was really saying is, actually, how can I grab someone's attention for 5-10 seconds out of this person's incredibly busy schedule and get what I want from them? And I think that's something that our platform does so well, is it enables communicators to go out and actually kind of be disruptive, but on a small scale, and at a scale that's enough to then get what you need out of those people that otherwise may not be found on a day-to-day basis.
Right, exactly. And I think that's so crucial. Like, also, you mentioned, like, yes, being disruptive, but also meeting that person where they are able to be met for those few seconds, you know, to get that. Because of course, you know, when we're wired into our work, we're not accepting disruptions, but everybody looks down at an app every now and then, and being able to meet employees where they are. Because like you said, we, even in our personal lives, we're on WhatsApp, we're on Messenger, we're using email, we're using, you know, various social media platforms. So there's no one size fits all. So when you're able to publish from a single source and meet employees across your entire tech stack, that's where you can kind of really increase that scale and be much more effective. All right, Steve, I think we can go ahead and move to the last lesson here. So the last lesson reads, take measurement beyond clicks and likes. Now, of course, when we're talking about employee advocacy and we're talking about the process of measuring your success, often people will look at clicks and likes, and not to kind of disregard those. They are still important metrics, but there's a lot more, at least from your, you know, lessons learned, it seems that there's a lot more you can do in terms of measurement. So maybe you could walk us through some of those kind of things you've learned along the way.
Yeah, I think it's important for any programming you're managing to understand, you know, what's the business case of this. So what are you looking to measure first? So are you, for example, we'll take the traffic to the website example. what are you looking to measure? If that's what you're looking to drive, it's very simple. You're going to be looking at impressions and the volume of traffic that you drive to the website. Now, that's great, and you can say that, all right, what we want is 100,000 new sessions generated in the next month. But why do you want that? So it's always important for when you're managing platforms is to really understand, why is it that we want to achieve this goal? Why is this important to you? What happens if you don't reach that? And I think that it's something that is becoming more and more prevalent as it becomes much easier to attribute return on investment to areas of social media, for example. So looking at what it is you want to measure, and importantly, why you then want to measure it, helps you then do what the slide says. It then helps you take your measurement beyond just looking at the amount of impressions that you get and the social reactions you get, and then it enables you to understand the value of what it is you're driving. So we go back to the website traffic example, because it's an easy one. If you want to drive a certain amount of traffic to your website, understanding why do you want people to come to your website. Right. So it's not like you just want people to turn up on your website and then leave again. You want them to find something, really, and that depends entirely on what it is your business is doing at that time. Are you looking to build a database of contacts so that you can retarget in your marketing journey? Are you actually are you looking at promoting a new line of service that you're pushing in a new market? Once you know that, then you can do two things. You can measure the effectiveness and then justify and present a return on investment to the company that you're working for. But you can also help actually kind of improve that. And once you understand what it is you're trying to do and why, you can then say, well, all right, well, what can we do in order for us to hit that goal? So rather than just say, I want to get 100,000 website sessions, let's get people to share as much as possible. Where do you want them to be on the website? What do you want them to do from that point? And then you can then start measuring down the funnel and actually start to, in the end, get a dollar value for what it is that you're trying to do.
Right. And I think, you hit the nail on the head there. That's at least what I've been hearing from some of our more, successful and kind of big clients that have put like major effort and thought into this, is like taking it beyond, kind of the metrics you expect, which is like the click and the like, the reaction, the comment, the share, and understand, okay, what happens when when someone clicks on this? Where do they go into the funnel? Did they perform an action on the website? Was this, like look at actual concrete revenue driven through these types of...
Did that person submit an application, for example? Did that person then get hired? That's when you can really start to drive real return on investment from a platform and from a program. But it's so important that you understand what you want to measure and why you want to measure it, because otherwise you're just presenting empty vanity metrics, to be honest. I think that the other side to this and how you measure is, okay, I can get all this data, and you could be getting this from Smart, for example. You could be getting this in external analytics providers that our platform integrates, like Google Analytics, for example. Data Armor would be another one that I know that a lot of these big companies are using. Wherever you're looking at this information, it's got to give you something that is more than just a number. So you've got to understand what you can do with that in order to be able to improve. So if you, for example, are looking at, you've just released a new product and you want to increase the engaged visits on your website. Now, obviously, if you're then using Google Analytics, for example, you can look at sessions generated from which source, which target, which campaign, and then what happens when that person comes onto the website. How many other sessions do they then influence, and where's the endpoint for that individual person on your website? But in order to know how to improve that, you need to be able to identify areas where you're not getting what you want from it. And I think that that's where, again, our platform is so strong with our Workforce Insights Studio, is that actually being able to ask questions of the data that you're seeing and then get from it something that's insightful. So if I give you the example of the engaged visits on the website, you can say that, okay, I want to increase engaged visits on my website because I'm launching a new product. How do I do that? Well, the first thing is obviously I need people from all over the business to be sharing this kind of content, which is directing to this area of my website. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's number one. That's the number one thing that you've got to do. I can then look at that and look at the different segments of my business in the analytics and see, okay, well, which areas of the business, which regions, business units, geographies are all performing at the level that I need them to in order to push this in the way that I do. But importantly, where can we improve? So what segments of our business are lagging behind others in helping me achieve this goal? Right. And being able to drill down to those points and then actually get something insightful from the data. So for example, on Smart, if you were to see a segment of users, it could be a particular team in the UK, for example, isn't really engaging that much with this campaign that you're running. Mm-hmm. If you click through, you can go on paths to click through and understand what they do engage with. So you can actually do something about that. So is there a specific post type that these group of people usually have really high engagement on? And then you can start to tailor and really target the right people. And again, it's such a simple concept. It's the right person at the right time with the right network. How can you then actually improve and target that part of your business better so that you can get to the end state of where you want to be, which in this case is obviously to increase those engaged visits to a particular site.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, what you're talking about, one of those great examples from Workforce Insights is the different content types. And I've seen a bunch of examples where when you were looking at the data from a global level, from a global perspective, you might see that, text-based articles work the best and convert the best. But then when you look at a specific audience, at a specific maybe a region or department, it turned out that, or it often has turned out that, say video works or converts significantly better.
It's just that understanding, is being able to improve by understanding what's happening and then being able to do something about it, whatever that is.
Yeah, exactly. And the one great thing, like I still need to call out about Workforce Insights, and this is, not to get too detailed into it, but I'm so excited about it that I need to tell everybody, is like, within that studio, you can actually set alerts that will monitor those data points for you, so you don't have to be in there constantly looking at them. So again, we talk about integrations and time savings and streamlining that work. It all ties back into what we've been talking about here. All right, but I think if that's all you have on this point, I think we can go ahead and start wrapping up. Again, this has been a great and interesting session. We haven't done an EA focused session in a while, so Steve, I want to thank you for taking the time to talk to us today. One of the things I wanted to call out is, yes, this is the last session for SMARP for this year, but we will be back in the new year with a bunch of new, cool and new stuff. And the first thing we're going to be covering in January is related to IT. And now, Steve, me and you both talked a lot about IT today, about how important they are to bring into the conversations early, how important they are to kind of engage and make them feel like they're not just having another tool dumped on them and kind of having to work from there. So we're going to be hosting a session where we kind of talk about the value of modern employee communications to IT and how you can engage those buyers earlier, or those those people in your organization earlier. I'll put a link up on the screen right now. Don't worry, if you click it, you won't be sent away. You'll still be here for our closing remarks. But do check it out. It's going to be a really interesting session. It's going to be Yogesh Malik kind of the former CTO of Vion and been at Vodafone and a bunch of massive telecoms, as well as Brad Whitworth, our strategic advisor, kind of comms legend in the Bay Area. And they're going to talk about how communications and advocacy and IT all work together and mesh really well. With that, I'd like to thank everybody for joining us. Of course, if you're interested in hearing how the Smart platform can help you, do a lot of those things we were talking about, scale an employee advocacy program to a global audience, integrate, make sure that you meet your employees in the areas that they are, on the platforms that they are, and just enable kind of that you to scale to those different ROI benefits that we were talking about. Do check us out. Information is on the screen. Steve, any last kind of words of wisdom from you before we sign off?
No, I think the audience has heard more than enough from me today, Alex. So thank you very much, everyone who listened. I hope you enjoyed it and got lots out of it.
Yeah, and to everybody still here, we wish you a really, really happy holiday season. Take it easy. It has been a long year. 2020 has been a long year, so I think we've all deserved a bit of rest and relaxation before we launch into 2021. But with that, thank you, everybody, and we'll see you next year. Bye.